The lights are going off. It's getting dark.
Have you met George R. R. Martin?
So
They're all improvised.
And very well delivered.
Thank you, mate.
The enemy without may be fought with swords. The enemy within is more insidious.
There is more than one way to fight a war.
So coming into season 2, Aemond's done a lot, he's seen a lot, he's basically caused a war.
It wasn't his fault. It was an accident.
Where do we find him? How's he feeling?
He's feeling many things. You know, he's left the realm in a very sticky situation. He's tasked with a choice. He can either return home to King's Landing and tell his mother that he made a mistake, that he let his emotions get the better of him, and in doing so, be at the hands of Rhaenyra's mercy. Or he can go back to King's Landing and claim the kill, so to speak, save his face, and in doing so, he would become the most wanted man in the realm. He knows that there's no going back from what he did in the skies above Storm's End. So, yeah.
Yeah, I find it so interesting that it was a mistake for him, because in the book I know some people find it a slightly different interpretation. What was that like for you to play that sort of? And I know in the first episode he does show that kind of remorse.
Mm-hmm.
How interesting was that for you as an actor to play?
Yeah, super interesting. It's nice to find the shadow side of Aemond in season 2. You know, what I also like about the last episode of season 1 was. It was just that face of regret on Aemond. It was a moment that only Aemond and the audience shared, you know. And so going into season 2, you know he regrets that moment. You know he starts the domino effect that will lead to it might lead to the Dance of the Dragons. But yeah, and so season 2, you are going to see that side maybe, you know, reveal itself again. Or maybe he's just squashed it. Maybe it doesn't exist anymore. So.
Yeah, I mean, either way, he is also such a brutal warrior. And I know in the book he's got some incredibly fierce clashes coming up. How much of that are we going to see this season?
Oh, that would be telling. but for sure, Aemond he's the second son. He's the spare. It's the duty of the spare to fight the war, and so he's very much at his brother's command. That's one of the redeeming qualities about Aemond, is that he is fiercely loyal. He will have his mother's back. He will have his brother's back, and yeah, I think Aemond knows that war is inevitable, and he'll make sure that he'll emerge the war hero from it.
If we start with Aegon, we find him this season sort of thrust onto the throne. How is he dealing with that, and kind of the costs that can come with being on the throne, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to take it in his stride as best he can, or just for appearances at least for now. I think he's decided that he's in this position now, and he can either embrace it or reject it, and it's a more fun option for him at this point to embrace it. And it's the first time we see him with any sort of purpose or responsibility. And yeah, he's relishing that, and I think he's getting a lot from the routine of having somewhere to be at a certain time, sort of thing. Yeah, it's fun though. It's good.
And of course, Helaena has. I mean, they didn't hold back with your big moments from the very start of the season. I'm allowed to talk about episode 1 and 2, and obviously hold it back, but the notorious blood and cheese storyline that fans have been waiting for.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Just the most heartbreaking scene to perform?
Just trying to just keep not overthink it from an acting perspective, and just kind of, you know, in that scene, I'm working with Sam and Mark, who played Blood and Cheese. They're so good, and they're so sort of, they both brought such different energies, but they were like intimidating and not as real people. They're like,
Sam's voice is real.
yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Lovely.
He's the funniest, sweetest guy, and Mark's so funny and great as well. And they're just brilliant, and just sort of staying present with them and seeing what happened, really.
Yeah. And what can you say about, you know, we see a little bit of it in episode 2, but the grief that Helaena goes through throughout the season now after that, and where her mind is at.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, Helaena essentially kind of bought that, the agreement, the sort of social agreement that she would do what was necessary for the royal family in return for sort of relatively being left alone, and that she'd be like safe in her marriage to her brother, or that she'd be, you know, left to her own devices in return for like heirs and etc. etc. And I think in this season she's really realising that that's not, it's not true, and it's not a fair bargain, and she slightly is sort of coming into her own and realising that maybe she's not willing to sacrifice what she has to sacrifice for this family of absolute wrong-uns. Yeah.
And of course, Aegon as well is being pulled in all these different directions by his mother, by Otto Hightower, by even Larys. Can you give us any sense of where his head is going to be towards the end of the season?
Oh, I don't want to do that. I'll ruin it for everyone. He goes on a roller coaster ride this time. It's all over the place. He's very scatty anyway. So when you put in this kind of situation with all these responsibilities and the potential of, you know, backstabbing and betrayal and love and grief and all that stuff thrown into the mix, it's always a nice melting pot of chaos that that kind of pours itself all over the bedroom floor.
Whoa. Slip and slide.
Let's get soapy.
Wet t-shirt contest.
Oh no! Next question.
I mean, I guess a bit related to that. Aegon has some of the best lines, I think, of the entire show.
They're all improvised.
And very well delivered.
Thank you, mate. That was the tip of the hat.
To you.
Have you got any favourites or any kind of particular scenes you can give us any clue at that was
God, there's just so many to choose from. I'm so lucky in that, you know, the way he's been written this season is I get the chance to cover so many bases with Aegon, and he's sort of his maverick unpredictability, is the wildness, the loose cannon that he is, but also is what I've really enjoyed this time is sort of leaning a little bit more into his vulnerability and kind of trying to find reasons for the way he makes decisions. It's easy to see him as a villain and someone who's calculated and cold and kind of emotionless. But I've said this before, Phia's probably sick to goddamn death of hearing me say the same thing, but I feel like he's on the other side of that. I feel like he feels a lot more, and when he does feel, he feels deeply.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't say that again, I promise.
No, but I yet again agree. But I also think that's I've actually learned from this piece of wisdom you have, because it's made me think about how I think that all of us siblings, we all have that thing of like, we feel too much to be contained, but there isn't a way for us to express ourselves healthily or
because there's no communication.
And so they all just go in different directions and they all feel as alone as each other.
And it manifests in such different ways for each one of them, Yeah, very true.
So true.
So what can you tell me about Larys's journey this season?
Larys's journey, he's sort of coming into the limelight a bit more, stepping out of the shadows. There's a lot of chaos, and chaos is a ladder, and it's time to start climbing.
Yeah, of course, in those first couple of episodes, Aegon sort of makes it clear that he wants him close, he wants him very much around. How would you say that impacts where he's going this season?
Well, I think Larys is such a chameleon that I think he sort of sees what people need in the moment and becomes that thing to get close to them. And I think in Aegon he sees that Aegon needs to feel worthwhile, and he doesn't feel respected, and he doesn't feel like he's actually being listened to or treated with respect. And that's something that Larys recognises in himself and can actually genuinely sympathise with and empathise with. So he's able to get close to him and be the support that he knows that he needs.
Absolutely, and you have these incredible scenes with Olivia. You kind of did last season, and they continue where, Alicent she seems on the back foot. What are those conversations like with Olivia when you guys are playing that, and what sort of conversations have you had with the writers about those incredible scenes?
Well, what me and Olivia discovered was that with Larys and Alicent, none of the things that they say to each other are what they actually mean. It's all about what's actually happening underneath the line or in the silences. So that's really, really fun to play. And it was just sort of fleshing that out with the writers and directors and really sort of trying to be as detailed as possible, because it's all subtext, really. And Olivia's just great. I mean, it's such an odd power dynamic between those two. You're never quite sure who's in control. So it's really fun to play those really messed up scenes together.
Yeah, it's almost like we see her at her most vulnerable when she's around him. It's so interesting to watch.
Yeah.
How does that relationship with Aegon now kind of develop? Now he's fully now his brother's kind of fully thrust onto the throne.
Mm-hmm. I think he still believes that Aegon is inferior to Aemond. Like you were talking about Aemond being a fierce warrior. Aemond, he was in the Red Keep yard day in, day out, training with Kristen Cole. He was studying with the Meisters, and so he very much feels that Aegon lacks the perseverance. Aegon, he's probably squandering his inheritance in Flea Bottom somewhere, and Aemond, he's kind of manufactured himself into this weapon. So he does. He feels like Aegon is inferior, but he is fiercely loyal to the Greens, and so it's interesting to see that and see how it all plays out, for sure.
What were your first reactions to the script when you first read kind of where Aemond is going this season, and is it something did you want to take inspiration from the book, or did you want to make your kind of mark on it?
It was apparent reading the episodes for the first time. It was apparent that this isn't just television, this is HBO. Every episode on this they're like feature-length films. They're as big as any film out there. And so as an actor, you can either be intimidated by that or you can embrace it. And I think about what Aemond would do, and he'd probably embrace it with open arms and and take the bull by the horns. And so yeah, I kind of took it all, and it's going to be a wild ride for sure.
Yeah. Have you been able to speak to George R.R. Martin at all?
No, I've never met him, but it's definitely a man's brain I'd love to pick.
Yeah.
It's this world that he's created and all its iconography. It's escapism.
Yeah, 100%. That's something I'd watch in season 2. Just the detail. I think you need to watch them.
Have you met George R.R. Martin?
No.
Yeah.
I'd love to as well. But yeah, the detail of watching the show, you need to watch them over and over again. I think.
They're so good. So rich and detailed.
I think with Alicent as well, and how would you say that relationship between kind of mother and son is developed this season? Because I know in the first few episodes she's sort of feeling not very listened to, and like she almost might lose control of these, as you say, these absolute wrong uns of sons she's got.
There's been a total shift in dynamic, hasn't there? Because forever she was the matriarch, she was the one who was calling the shots, and I think somewhere in her she thought that by putting Aegon on the throne she could then call the shots, but from the background, and him be the sort of the mouthpiece of and the voice of her, really. But she's sorely mistaken, it seems. Dun dun dun.
Dun 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 dun.
Oh, love that.
Lovely. How much inspiration do you take from the book? Because obviously it's very, very different seeing it on screen. Was there any, did you look to that for kind of any inspiration on playing the character, or did you very much want to make your mark?
No, I did, definitely. Yeah. But it's one of those things that you never really know how much our brilliant writers are going to keep and how much they're going to veer off and do their own thing. So as much as I did, I kind of have to do it lightly, because you don't know what's going to change. You can only go really off the scripts. But I use it as inspiration, definitely.
Yeah. And what can you say? Obviously, we know Thrones and House of the Dragon of no qualms about going a bit dark.
Go a bit dark.
A little
don't
bit
they?
dark,
Yeah.
to say
They've
the
been known
least.
to. Yeah.
What can you say about how dark this season's going to go, what we're going to go through as viewers?
Oh, yeah, it's going to get really dark. The lights are going off. It's getting dark. Yeah, they went to, like, we're sort of plunging the depths, really, here, of sort of human despair and human suffering. And it's war, you know, the world's about to fall apart. So, yeah, get ready.
And Larys
Sounds
is
makes
loving
it sound
it.
like a bummer, you know. This makes it sound like really, yeah, it's a sad show. I'm sorry, would you say Larys is?
And I feel like Larys is kind of loving it in a way.
Yeah, it's great, you know, fantastic. Yeah, he's in his element.